Thank you for joining us for the MLC's Asian American and Pacific Islander Music Industry Roundtable to commemorate AAPI Heritage Month. We have an exciting roundtable today with a panel full of music industry creators and professionals representing different backgrounds that they're going to dive into about their work and their identity, and just really have a good time having this conversation. We will open up a Q&A at the end. If you can use the Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen to be able to enter your question, our moderator will get to those questions towards the end of our conversation here. So let me get started by welcoming Amy Lui. Amy is the music educator for the Los Angeles Unified School District at John H. Francis Polytechnic High School, where she teaches music technology, industry studies, and the instrumental ensembles. Her goal is to provide young adults with meaningful music career opportunities that go beyond the performance sectors in the art, media, and entertainment industries. To see what her music technology industry studies program is up to, you can visit the school's website. Amy is also active in serving the music education and industry fields. She is representative of secondary music education for the California Music Educators Association and an executive board member of the Los Angeles Secondary Music Teachers Association. Additionally, Amy is the coordinator and helps to facilitate the educational outreach for the Asian American Collective, which is a nonprofit organization formed during the pandemic to provide resources and membership to Asian Americans entering the music, entertainment, and creative spaces, while also partnering with various organizations to serve communities in need. So thank you, Amy, for joining us. You can come on screen. Amy will be moderating today's conversation. Thank you, Amy. I'm going to pass it over to Amy, who's going to control today's conversation. Take it away.
Wow, thank you for the best intro I've ever had in my life. So yeah, welcome everyone. My name is Amy. So I do teach in the Los Angeles Unified School District. We're out in the Sun Valley, and the funny thing about Poly High School is since we're on the topic of AAPI communities and industry, we're actually the high school that William Hung attended, which was a couple of years before he did the third season of American Idol. Yeah. You know, I want to first thank Day and his wonderful team at the MLC for providing these opportunities for more people to see representation in the music space, and also to provide a panel for us to feel heard and share our stories. So let's get started with some introductions from the panel. If everybody could include your geographic location at the moment and what flavor Asian you are, and a little bit about what you do or what style of music you work with. So let's start with Alana.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Alana Rich. I am currently located in Portland, Oregon. My background is I am an artist, songwriter, and event curator. And the flavor of Asian I am is I'm Filipino, Spanish, Thai, Lao, and Vietnamese. So a mix of a lot of different Asian cultures. And I'm very excited to be here and hear everyone's stance and perspective.
Yeah, welcome, Alana. And then we have Chloe.
Hello, everyone. My name's Chloe Duvall. I am from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm a dark pop singer-songwriter. I'm an artist, but I also write for other artists. And I am a quarter Taiwanese. My mom is half, and my grandma's from Taiwan, so I am mixed.
Yeah, welcome, Chloe. And now we have Dondi.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, my name's Dondi. I'm from Hawaii, the island of Kauai. I actually just moved to Nashville, Tennessee at the end of last year. My flavor of Asian, as you can see, I'm mixed, but I'm Filipino from my mom's side of the family, also Italian, English. So yeah, I got that mixed in there. I'm a singer-songwriter, and I guess I would put my genre as kind of an acoustic pop and a little bit of some islandy vibes. Yeah.
Awesome. Welcome. And then we have Edward. Also goes by Casper. Yeah.
Hello. Oh, hold on. Hello. My name's Casper. You can call me Edward though, because we're that close already. I make sort of just like indie pop music. I'm Taiwanese and I'm from Arcadia, California. So yeah, Taiwanese, woo. So yeah, that's me.
Very welcome. And then we also have Faith.
Aloha, everyone. I'm tuning in from Honolulu, Hawaii. I moved back home about 5 years ago, and I am purebred. I'm just Filipino. My parents are from the Philippines. Yeah, I was born in Kauai, raised in Oahu, but most of my career was in Los Angeles. I was a session singer, but my main focus was a touring artist, right? Travel the world, I guess, sharing this kind of inspirational pop music. Sometimes it was dance and sometimes it was just more mellow, chanting stuff, but it's definitely positive music. And let's see, and my focus now here in Hawaii, since I'm not touring as much, I'm raising my kids, is really writing different music and music projects for TV and film, from swagger rap to old school R&B. So just really enjoying the process. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome, welcome. And then now we have Michelle.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Day, MLC, for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I live in Los Angeles in Santa Monica, but I'm from New York City. And my flavor of Asian is very teeny. I am a little bit Mongolian, but I am mostly Jewish, and it is Jewish American Heritage Month too. So there's another small minority in this world that we can celebrate our diversity on. I'm so happy to be here and support this Asian and Pacific Islander event today. I am a music producer, songwriter, publisher. I publish my own catalog, and I have for 43 years pretty much. So I'm the veteran here. So I'm also old, and there we have another bit of diversity in our music business. So thanks for having me, Amy.
Oh, you're still young at heart, but I just want to quickly say that, yeah, Michelle is the guru of helping so many self-published music creators with understanding how we can make a living doing what we love and showing us the steps to doing things the right way and properly claiming our royalties. I was at her session at the NAMM show last month and was completely packed. The lines for questions were out the door. So thank you so much for joining us today, Michelle.
Thank you for having me. I love to be of service, so thank you.
Oh, yeah, and then now we have Soy.
Hi, thank you, Amy, Jay, and the MLC for having us here. My name is Soy, and I'm based in New York, and I consider myself a purpose-driven marketer and DE&I leader. Day to day, I'm a product marketer at Spotify, where I work to bring to market tools that support artists in building their audiences on our platform, and I identify as a 1.5 generation Korean immigrant.
Wow. Yeah, so Soy is someone who is so generous with her time and frequently mentoring those who are new to the industry. And I highly recommend folks giving her Billboard articles a read on K-pop groups, New Jeans, and what's next on Blackpink and BTS. And then also now we also have Grace Lee.
Hi, good to be here. Amy, Day, MLC, Soy, my friend Soy, and the squad. I'm Grace Lee. I am Korean American based in Paris. I have 20 years in the music industry, half of that, hi Mia, half of that at Columbia Records in New York, the other half at YouTube. And I moved to Paris in February to start my own company. So I'm now consulting management teams, labels, and brands on music strategy and artist development. I'm also a co-founder of Asian American Collective, which Day mentioned in Amy's intro, and shout out to Amy for helping us so much on the day-to-day activity with AAC, and Soy, a repeat mentor.
Yeah. So now this Grace has just been like a sister to so many of us, and she's created the Asian American Collective, and has helped a number of careers, develop over the years. So we're just so lucky to have everyone on this panel today. So let's dive into how music may tie into our identities. And the first question is for anyone on this panel. So how has your heritage shaped the relationship between music and your identity? Don't be shy. Oh, we're so polite as Asians.
I can take this one.
Alana.
I'm a second generation Asian American with parents of Thai, Lao, Vietnamese, and Filipino descent. So growing up with all of those cultures mixed into my household, you could imagine how I blended, like family practices and certain values together. My Filipino side of my family has always had a great appreciation of music. There's always karaoke happening, dancing and pop music at all the family gatherings. And then on my Thai, Lao, Vietnamese side, there's always an emphasis of meeting others with kindness and acceptance and treating our friends and neighbors like family. So I feel like those values have been ingrained into my identity, and as a result have kind of infiltrated my music. I realized I didn't mention that I'm a dance pop artist. I write and perform dance pop music. So it's always more of like an uplifting, positive, just like having a good time type of vibe. So that's how I think that my identity and heritage has influenced how I approach my career and my writing and how I present myself as a professional in the industry.
Wow. Yeah. And then we had a conversation before where you feel that as an artist, sharing music is pretty much sharing an exchange of energy. And that was really profound for me. Yeah.
Yeah, we did have that conversation. Yeah, I look at every interaction and the music I put out as an exchange of energy. You know, if someone takes the time to listen to my music for 3 minutes or so, you know, I always think about, okay, what is the impact that I'm leaving on that person, you know? And I want it to be, you know, an uplifting good one where people come away from it feeling heard, you know, included, uplifted. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody else want to add to that?
I'll say something. I've been doing this a really long time, and I think that the coolest thing is that we have a forum like this, because when I started out, you hid your ethnicity, whatever it was. You ignored it, you hid it. Being female wasn't good, being Asian wasn't good, being Black wasn't good, I'm Jewish, being Jewish wasn't good, none of this was good. And so we really kept it quiet. But now that we can bring all of this out and celebrate our diversity and our ethnicities, this is a change that is so huge. So I would say when I look back in my past, I did not use anything that I'm of ethnicity I'm from. I tried to hide it, not hide it, but I ignored it just to move forward. And look who just won American Idol, everybody. Iam Tangi, Pacific Islander, amazing. Back in the day, we didn't even want an Asian artist to cut our song because they couldn't sell any records. Now BTS, Blackpink, and I in my career have written and produced many, many J-pop songs since 1990. But those songs were huge in Japan and some in Korea, but they did nothing internationally. They were just big in their market. But now, look what we have, right? We have little white teenagers going to see BTS. So I would say that is the most exciting thing that is happening, and that we're all here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, exposure to a global audience. And but yeah, Donnie, you had something?
Oh, I was just gonna talk about kind of just the first question about like culture affecting. But yeah, growing up, I think this is a trademark Filipino thing, but very creative family. All my Filipino family was into dancing. My great grandmother, when she came over, she was a designer. So much creativity was in my family from my Filipino side, and that's the side I grew up with. So that totally shaped my love for music. And also to credit growing up in Hawaii, and Faith, who's on here, we know each other from back home. That's really cool. But it's such a musical culture, and it's such a melting pot of so many different cultures, Polynesian and Asian specifically. And that just fostered so much creativity and all these cultures coming together. And we have something back home called Kapila, which is you just sit around and jam. And so I think anyone in Hawaii grew up with that influence, not just of the Hawaiian culture, but that was predominantly like the leading culture, but all these other different cultures, Filipino, Japanese, Chinese, Puerto Rican. And so that's huge, I think, for me, that really shaped who I am and my music.
Yeah, that diversity really matters a lot. Yeah. And then so that brings us to our next question. How has identifying as Asian, and with that maybe your gender, helped or hindered your career or personal decision making?
Yeah, I want to jump in there. This is Faith. In the session singing world, and those are the singers, you know, you hear, you don't even know you're hearing them, but they're on TV and films and all that. In a strange way, being Asian helped me because it was such a tight group that my first calls that I got for my jobs was because they needed diversity. They needed somebody that looked different. And I remember in one session, I got another session because of my ties to Hawaii. You know, I'm not Pacific Islander by race, but you know, I'm a local from here. And I remember in one call, and I won't say who the company is, all of a sudden I became the expert in that room only because I was the closest thing to it. They're like, Faith, would a Hawaiian do this or do that? And I was like trying to channel, you know, my inner Hawaiian to represent. So I would say it helped me in that way. And also in my niche market, you know, as this positive music artist, being Asian, I stood out. I was like the only Filipino Asian girl, you know, so I would say it helped me in those ways. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Anybody else want to add to?
I'll
jump
add.
in. Oh, you
Oh,
go first, Chloe.
Okay. Well, I was just going to talk about like being mixed and everything. I feel like it's helped and hindered my career at the same time because I've never really like felt like I fit in, but like white people see me as Asian and Asian people see me as white. So it's like I get opportunities because of my ethnicity and my background. And I'm like a part of a booking agency that only books API artists, which is like really cool. But I do have moments throughout my career where I'm like, why am I getting opportunities for this? Like, am I not Asian enough? Am I not good enough to be in this group? But people still see me as diverse. And so I do get opportunities because of it, but it's almost like a weird shame where you're in between because like no one looks like you on either side. So you don't really know where you fit in, but then some people see you as sort of like a token. And it's like, it's just an interesting thing because I think there's good and bad things that have happened to me because of my ethnicity. And I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful to be able to bring that diversity into the music industry, but it is difficult not knowing where you fit in and not feeling like you're good enough to be in a certain group or like you're going to be taking away from people who are completely Taiwanese, when in reality, that's not really what it's about. We're all here to share our different cultural backgrounds and our experiences as an Asian person, as an Asian artist. And I think that's really good to talk about different backgrounds and different ways that we grew up.
Yeah, and I would add to that, you know, that is what's so cool about the world now. When I was a little girl, my parents took me to model because my father was an advertiser and he worked for Parents magazine. They told my parents I was too dark to photograph and could not be in the magazine. That is not the case anymore, right? When you talk about where does a person fit in and their basis of their ethnicity or their color, I was not even the right color being this color. So I think that is such great progress. I do think where we have fallen short is in gender. In race, we're actually moving a little forward. In gender, where the population is 50-50, we are not actually doing very well. And in my career, I have not seen in the 43 years I've been a professional in this business much changing in terms of gender, sadly. And when we look at Asian Americans, if we're looking at America, I looked up some percentages this morning, and I noticed that 0.4% of Americans are Asian, but 50% are women, are female. And so we do in that sense, so, have a lot to go, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then, Soy, you had some thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to add, so I grew up in America, to Korean immigrant parents who came much later. But what was fascinating was when I graduated high school, my family actually moved back to Korea. And so I have approached my career from this lens of learning what it means to be an outsider from both sides, right? So growing up in America as someone who looks the way we do, we're often seen as outsiders, even if we've been here 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 generations. And it was really interesting moving back to Korea as someone who wasn't quite fluent in the language at the time, now finally looking like I should belong, but learning that I was an outsider because I didn't sound like I should be there. And so I think through that experience of learning to read, speak, and write fluent Korean, and also learning that contextualization of what does Korean culture look like when you are there versus how we think about it as an immigrant, it's just really opened my eyes and has built more empathy across all people groups, because it just teaches you that it's not a binary, it's not a this or that. Culture is so nuanced, and there is such a scale and a spectrum on which someone may fall in their own journey of understanding and learning, because let's see, real Asian American history is not even taught in US schools today. And so I think in general, I see that being anyone of color, being anyone of culture is actually a superpower, because it teaches you to be empathetic and to approach so much of the music industry in a way that's really thoughtful, because you know what it feels like to have been an outsider. You know what it feels like to learn and to ask people for help. So that's kind of been the interesting way that I have seen my heritage personally really impacting the way that I even look at the work that I touch, and the people that I get to work with and who I get to meet.
Yeah, and then I'm really interested in hearing Grace, because you've had such an awesome career, and like working with so many global artists now. Like, have you ever had issues, because of the way you look, or from your cultural background?
Funny enough, no. And I think maybe it's because I've always been had sort of an assertive presence and personality, and I just didn't take shit from anyone ever. So no, in that sense, like, did it negatively impact, or do I feel like as a Asian female, did I feel sort of behind? No, but I think, we talk about this a lot at AAC. It's like one of the reasons, or core reasons, why we formed the organization is because I actually had mentors, like good mentors, as I was coming up in the business, but none of them were Asian. And as Zena, Caroline, my co-founders, and I got to a certain point in our careers, we're like, what are we doing? Like, we need to be helping next gen, right? Like the young ones who are coming up, and the ones that may be struggling for whatever reason, or questioning their decisions, or having a hard time explaining to their parents what the hell it is they do. Like, we've been through it. We've been through all of it, so we felt a sense of sort of responsibility to provide a resource and build a network that we didn't have when we were younger and coming up in the business. So that kind of answers the question, Amy, but like also kind of plugs my organization, which I meant to do. So
Yeah. It's helped open so many doors for so many people. It's built such a big community. So, but yeah, and then going from there, what are some Asian traits that we all might have struggled with in our career, personal life? Like, for me, for instance, I've been told my whole life, be quiet, you should act like a lady. And then now, as a female Asian high school band director, and everyone I've known in the industry are white male, like, for me, it was struggling speaking out. But what about for you guys? Any Asian traits that might have something that you struggled with?
I think, and I don't know, it's hard for me to gauge like what is like a Hawaii Asian thing or what's like universally, just because where I've grown up. But kind of like what was addressed here a little bit in the last few minutes. And at the beginning when you said, oh, it's so Asian of us to be so polite. And like, I think that Asian culture can be very passive in certain ways. And I think there's a beauty to that. Like there's so many good things about that. It causes you to be more considerate and respectful in many ways. I think a lot of people could take some notes on that. But at the same time, I think too, in the music industry, this is a very aggressive and assertive industry. And for me personally, like there has been such, like back home we say it's like, oh, that's so shame. Like you would never do something if it brought like shame to your family or to your name, your community. And that's always like in the back of my head to a point of like, it's almost like a hindrance, like where I need to be like more assertive as like an artist who's trying to pursue it independently and having to push for myself. And so that's been like a real mind block, because it's like, not everybody is like this. Other people will push out in front of you and like take that if you're not willing to go for it. So that's something that has been like an actual, like a real hindrance for me in my career.
Yeah.
I think for me, being raised Asian sort of gave me like a very strict upbringing about like respect and a lot of like how to treat people and your elders. And I think like as a musician, a lot of the work probably happens outside of the studio. Most of the work actually happens outside of the studio, and whether it's sort of just like taking people out to dinner or just like hanging out with them, a lot of it is sort of just like these things that my parents have instilled upon me as like from a household of just like respect people and treat each other nicely. And like I remember growing up Christian, I learned like just a couple years ago that my parents didn't want me to become a Christian, but they just want me to like be in a good place to like learn morals and everything and stuff. And it was like, oh, we don't care about religion, but be a good person. And I was like, oh, cool. And strangely enough, like a lot of like Buddhist values have like made more sense to me. Like everyone is a teacher to you, and that like sort of really helped me progress along in the industry, because like there's so many people with so much more experience than you. You know, like you're always constantly learning. If you're not learning in this game or in the process, then you get too complacent. So I think a lot of what I use to propel myself forward comes from my background.
Oh yeah, funny that you bring up church. My parents are also Buddhists and told me to go to church to get the sandwiches.
The food was always so good. They always had like these
Yeah, they
really
know
good
how to feed you.
meals.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah. Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, I want to, Casper, thank you for sharing that. I love how you're highlighting, those values we got, and I feel the same way. And I want to highlight what Dondi was talking about, because such a big part of my career, that politeness that became shyness, that became fear. And I tried to quit music so many times, but the universe stepped in. I mean, I literally didn't go to Berkeley because I was scared, but it was a part of my path. And that's why for anyone that's listening now, it is a real struggle, but I think it made my story kind of, it's like my medicine to the world, because I created this whole thing called Everyday Superstars, where I created a space where for people who had stage fright like me, just to break through it and to still sing and to still be creative. And there's a joy, I think, in watching people have that big breakthrough. That's why I love what Grace, and I think Sawyer, part of it too, the Asian American Collective. I mean, if I had a group like that, it would have meant so much, so whatever we can say here to say, like, you can do it. And yeah, Hawaii people say don't make shame, but sometimes you got to make shame to shine your light, and it's not shame. So anyway, I'm very passionate about that topic.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And then right now we're going to dive more into sort of like the domestic and the global markets and seeing representation in that. What are we kind of touched on that with Michelle earlier, but your thoughts on AAPI representation in the music industry, how it might have evolved in the last decade, and what ways do you think we can improve on that?
So I can comment. It's funny because now being in Europe, I'm not just thinking about like the presence of Asian artists and Asian American artists in America, but I'm sort of looking at what's happening here. And in the first month of being here, there was a Korean music festival, pop music festival in Paris. And a friend of mine was performing. And so I went with him, and it was in an arena, and it was insane. It was 20,000 French kids, teenagers, singing and rapping in Korean. Like, what? I just like, I couldn't believe it, you know? So the sort of impact of this culture spreading and like Korean pop culture, Asian pop culture spreading globally and being embraced, and is just such an eye-opening, crazy, amazing thing to me. And I don't know, that's a moment that definitely stuck with me for sure. And when I think about sort of what does that mean for representation, like, you know, because I come from the business side of things, I'm not an artist, like I think about sort of what's the makeup of these companies that we work in, and our teams, and who's around us in this industry, right? And I think that, you know, the more people we can get in and the more sort of young people we can encourage to build their careers in this business, the better it is for all of us, you know, because when we get to the point where we have senior people in the industry, which we do now, right? So people when I was coming up who were assistants at the same time as me and stuff are now like running record companies, and they're Asian. Like, what? So cool, you know? So I think the more we see of that, and the more we see not just Asian too, just like diverse, non-white, non-straight, hetero, you know, people in charge, the more empathy is built, the more empathy they bring in with them. And perhaps that's sort of a catalyst for change in terms of which artists get signed and supported and pushed and promoted, and ultimately, you know, whose music gets consumed. So anyway, some thoughts.
You can tell that answer was decades in the making. But yeah, that was amazing insight, just to like see that we are moving somewhere. But yeah, anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, well, Zooms like this, right, Amy, and more organizations, because some people here have organizations that are centered on AAPI, and all of that is what brings groups to the forefront. And I think that's really great. And the groups need to be, however, inclusive. So, right, we don't want to exclude from female groups men, and we don't want to exclude other ethnicities from the Asian group. But having the groups and bringing it to the forefront, and also parlaying stuff like Ian Tangi's win on American Idol and BTS and all of that to the forefront of the fabulous cultural benefits for all of us to get involved in all this diversity, I think helps so much. Because again, as I was saying, in my day, you hid all of that. You pretended you weren't Asian, you weren't Black, you weren't gay, you just pretended you weren't, and you went about your business. But now that we can bring all of our diversity as a positive to the forefront, that I think is how we continue to perpetuate the inclusivity.
Yeah, thanks for that. Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah,
Yes,
I'd love to layer in. I think it's also, I mean, it's such an exciting time, right? Because for the first time, you're turning on screens and you're seeing people who look like you. And it's extremely exciting when I think about when I was growing up in America, on the playground, I remember I'd be asked, are you Japanese or Chinese? And those were the only two options if you looked like me. They had no other like understanding or awareness that there are over 40 countries in Asia. And so I think it's a really exciting time to finally see people who look like us everywhere. But I also think that with that comes this great responsibility to make sure that we're not making Asia a monolith. Right? There are so many of rich cultures. When we talk about Asian, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, there are so many types of people who fall into these groups. And I often find that the quick, easy cop-out for some companies is, we're celebrating AAPI Heritage Month. Here's a K-pop star, but that's not it. That's really not it. And we do ourselves a disservice if we let them get away with that type of work as being enough. And so I think that there is a great responsibility while this momentum is building to bring up South Asians with us, to bring up Pacific Islanders with us, to bring out the nuances of Southeast Asia versus East Asia, right? There is just a lot of education that needs to be done still. And also, what about folks who are not fully Asian, but they are still Asian? And what is that experience like? And how do we acknowledge the fact that by 2050, I believe the stats show that the majority of America will be mixed race, and that's super exciting, and we need to prepare for that future. And how do we prepare for the kids of this generation who are growing up to have the language and the understanding for that, right? So I think it's exciting, but it's also a moment to take a step back and make sure that we're being extremely intentional about how we're ushering in what's next.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then, that kind of dives into their next question, where, the commercialization of especially K-pop and what we associate with how maybe Asian men should be looking like, or how thin Asian women should be looking like. Do you think that commercialization might be, how it is affecting, AAPI heritage and the impact it has on the U.S. markets?
Well, if we look at Ian once again, there is a very large human who has reached the hearts of many, many ethnicities. So maybe we're getting past that too, Amy, Maybe we're seeing past size, I hope.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Anybody else want to add to that point? All right.
I think what Grace was saying is important, and what we're doing here is important. Really, I think it's about empowering AAPI and other of those minorities that might not be heard, just to follow through with your artist journey. Like I could have stopped, but I just had to keep going. That we have to keep going because I don't know. I mean, this is what we're here for, is to create. So yeah, like what Michelle said about EM, I think that at the end of the day, people want to feel a connection. And this may be kind of off topic, but I don't think so. I mean, at the end of the day, we just want to be the best, music creators or singers or songwriters, so that we make an impact, I think, at the end of the day. So it doesn't, at a certain point, it won't matter what race you're from, right? And I think that's what's happening with EM, is that now they can embrace J-pop and K-pop in a commercial level, but hopefully if EM is taken care of and his career is, nurtured, that's a new model for us. And I think how amazing that we just keep inserting ourselves, all the artists you see on here, that we can really be a whole rainbow of music and representation. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And then that kind of leads into like, our AAPI artists, like, our struggle in building our audience. Would anybody like to put in some insight into how, our artists here can build our audience and develop that connection?
I think one way is to really just like treat your fans as friends, with boundaries, of course, but I think a lot of it is treating your fans as people who are, recognized. I think like this whole idea of parasocial, where people are very obsessed with celebrities that don't even know they exist. But I think for you to really engage with your fans, you have to just know, like, hey, I see your message. Let's have a little quick conversation before I have to do something. But, connecting with your fans in every way, making your art accessible to them. I think those are like the two utmost like important things to really recognize as an artist trying to grow your business, that you need your fans and your audience, and you just need to make your work accessible.
Yeah.
I love that point that you just made about like making friends in the industry, because I feel like growing up, I was always told make connections. And it took me a while to realize that like your connections are your friends, because if you're just using someone for a connection, then that's all they're going to be. And then you're never going to talk again. But when you actually have an opportunity for another artist, who are you going to go to? You're going to go to your friends, because you want to see them succeed, because you care about them. And I feel like people don't talk about that enough, because they're so caught up on, I have to be successful, so I have to make connections. But I think what it really comes down to is connecting with people, and really just making friends with people in the industry and actually caring about other people's art and not gatekeeping so much. Because that's also something I see a lot is like gatekeeping. Like no one wants to share their secrets of how they got big because they're afraid that like if someone else gets big, then they're going to be their competition. But that's really not true. I think we can definitely grow together and help each other. And I think that's the healthiest way to grow in the music industry. And it's definitely the way that you get people to like you the most. And it's the way to not have so many enemies. Because music is an art, and I feel like we should share that art with each other, and actually find friendship through our art.
Yeah, great.
I so agree with you, Chloe, because I always mentor everyone that I mentor, which is a lot of people, that community is what's most important, that we should only be competitive with ourselves, not with anybody else. I want to celebrate everybody's successes. It doesn't take away from mine. It makes the world better, the community better, and I'm competitive with myself. So I might see, wow, Chloe got that really cool gig. How can I get something like that and be competitive with myself? But I would never think, Chloe doesn't deserve that gig. I should have gotten that gig. That gig was mine, and be jealous. Never, never, never. I don't believe in being jealous. We shouldn't be jealous. We should just be worried, to create and celebrate each other's ethnicity, diversity, successes. That's how everything gets better for everyone. So I love that you discussed that so much, Chloe. I love that. And I love that now I'm not an artist, so I'm behind the scenes. But as an artist now, everybody can be who they are. Their audience can know they're Filipino, they're Korean, they're Black, they're gay, they're everything, they're Asian, and create their community being authentic and real and true. And that is so important, because now if you look in the past, like an artist like Michelle Branch, I don't know if anybody remembers Michelle Branch, but she was huge. Michelle is half Asian, but she played that down, never talked about it, tried to look as white as possible, because in those days that wasn't acceptable. Whereas now she could have celebrated, and we all here now can celebrate our ethnicity, right? Like if you look at me, no one knows what the hell I am. I mean, I don't fall anywhere. And that was not really beneficial. People always asking, what are you? Are you Filipino? Are you this? Are you Latin? Are you, and people discriminating against that. Now we don't have that. Now we can just be who we are and announce, hey, I'm Korean, I'm Pacific Islander. That is the best thing ever for our fans, because going back to the question of how about increasing our fan base, our fans want us to be real and authentic.
Yeah, that's definitely, amazing advice. Just, showing who you are, because people are attracted to authenticity and also hearing unique stories that way. So that kind of goes into, but in order to reach our audience and also build ourselves up, building a team, the artist team, does that need to look different or have a different approach, or just in general because that tends to be something that artists struggle with, is how do we build our team to help us carry on, our goals?
I think what you said, Chloe, really attaches to this, because I think when you have a team, those teams aren't like, God forbid, your connections. They're like your family and your friends. So I think when you're like vetting for your team, you're really trying to understand, like, at the end of the day, who can you trust? Because everyone's going to mess up and make mistakes, and your team's going to like suffer through like obstacles or pitfalls. But like, who are the people you want to go through these pitfalls with? And so I think that's like what I consider the most important when I'm trying to find new team members.
I'll chime in a little bit here too. I think that I completely agree with Casper. And in addition to that, looking at your friendships, your team as not just a one-way street, providing value to them as well, is a way to continue building that rapport, that like mutually beneficial connection to build together to create that sense of community. And, ultimately just people want to feel like you're providing value as well, instead of just, oh, do this for me, do that for me. So really big on that. And yeah.
Something to layer into this, I think it's it almost applies more, I think, so I'm thinking from like the business perspective. I would really like to challenge places and companies to ensure that we're really bringing in folks who represent these cultures into the spaces where they're on the other side, ensuring that the artists and their artist team are supported in a really genuine manner. And I say this because I've found it to be that for some reason, the music from our cultures, being a fan is considered enough of a prerequisite and experience, but I never see that apply to any other genres. And it's just a little strange because it further almost exotifies music from people who look like us as just being enough if you're a fan and interested in it generally, right? The same level of rigor is not applied, and I don't think that's right. And I think when it comes to building the artist team, it's really important to make sure that you're bringing on people who have the same shared values with you, because the creation process of being an artist, you're really putting your soul out there. And it's a really vulnerable thing and a really beautiful thing that not many people can do, right? And that's why being an artist is so incredible. And we're just in awe when we even get to work on it from the business side. But in that way, it's so important that you're bringing on people who are really going to champion you and have your best interests in mind to really grow this together, not just to grow themselves or, to get the biggest check. It's really about building a mission and a legacy together. And then that also just genuinely tends to resonate best with audiences too. Like we're seeing as marketers right now that across the board, consumers really respond to things that feel genuine and real and relatable. And this kind of ties back to everything y'all have been saying, but no longer do you have to look a certain way. No longer do you have to sound a certain way. It's really about like, does the story resonate with me? And do I see myself in this artist? So.
Yeah. Wow. Those are such great points. Yeah. Anybody want to add into how we could possibly help artists to develop and share that story with a wider audience? All right. Okay. We now have time for some questions as we wrap it up, but are there any questions we have coming in? On the chat thing? If anybody want to drop in a question for, all right. Yeah, you know what? Anybody on our panel here want to ask each other questions?
Well, I'll ask the panel a question, because since I was discussing about where I come from the day of hiding everything, right? Like I still do, when I walk in a meeting and I don't even think I'm a female. I mean, I walk into a meeting, expect to have a business meeting, and someone always says something like, wow, it's really hard being a female, isn't it? And I like look around the room half the time going, oh, where's the female? Oh, they mean me. Because I'm so used to not identifying with my ethnicity, my religion, my gender, my anything, just trying to be a business person and a music creator and get my songs placed and pitched and ignore everything. Do you find now, to my panelists here, that you can celebrate and be open more about your ethnicity, or are you still hiding it, or not hiding it, but ignoring it? Just not, obviously you walk in the room, people see you are Asian, but are you not playing it down by not even mentioning it, by not even, dealing with it, just hiding it and going about your business?
I definitely don't hide the fact that I'm part Taiwanese, just because growing up, it was very celebrated in my family, which I'm very grateful for, but I do find it hilarious how people ask me what my ethnicity is, because they never ask me, what's your ethnicity? They always ask me where I'm from. And then I say I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. And they're like, no, where are you really from? And I'm like, Nashville, Tennessee. Like, that's where I'm from. I don't understand what you're getting at, but I do understand what they're getting at. And I feel like so many people are really scared to talk about it because they feel like maybe it's like weird if they ask, like, what kind of Asian are you? What flavor of Asian are you? When in reality, I actually would not be like, that would not offend me if someone asked me that, because I just tell them, oh, I'm part Taiwanese, you know? And I feel like we shouldn't be so scared about talking about our heritage. I feel like it's an important part of diversity to be able to talk about it. So I'm very happy that I don't have to hide any part of my background. And I'm grateful for the other people on this panel who don't have to do that. And I don't think we should have to do that.
Yeah, but does anybody find that they are? Like, you don't even discuss it or like, it's not something you announce when you walk in the room. Usually, like, they might ask you, yes, like you're saying, but do any of you feel like it's like the first thing that you identify with? And let's say you make a meeting, like some people, okay, so some people, I'm one of 2% of professional music producers, right? There's only 2% who are female. I'm one of them. I make a living as a music producer, 2%. I actually have on my resume right now that I announce it because I'm trying to promote it, right? Do you find that you would do that, like put on your resume, Taiwanese or Pacific Islander or Asian artist? Would you announce it? Whereas in the past, someone would not announce it. Do you feel that that's something that is a good thing?
Personally, I don't announce anything that I'm like Taiwanese, because I feel like it's very obvious. Because like I don't hide my face at all. When I do like press, it's like just a photo shoot of my face, and so people know I'm Chinese of some sort, Asian of some sort. So I think if I were to champion like, oh, Asian American artist, the fact of the matter of putting it first, I feel like dilutes sort of the Asian American culture, because you're just piggybacking off of it when really you should just be promoting your art, and you just happen to be Asian, and that's cool. And so that's what I think is really good that works for me. But at the same time, I'm also very glad that there are other people who are saying that they're Asian American first and then making the art, because I think that representation is still needed. And I think if they can make it work for them, then all the power to them. But personally, I think it's not a choice that, or this is just my personal choice for make.
Right, but remember, some people like me are behind the scenes. So when I'm pitching music, no one's seeing me, right? They're not seeing what I look like. So that's why I'm wondering too, like, you know, like, look at Dondi, from your name, I would think you were Italian. And I have a close friend named Dondi, who's a music supervisor, Dondi Bastone. He's Italian, right? So, you know, Dondi, he's the best. Yeah. He's the best. So if that's why I'm saying, you know, would you, if you were pitching somebody blindly and you weren't seen, would you mention it or not?
I think to answer that, and I guess it's different for everybody. This goes more to like culturally raised, and faith might relate back, but Hawaii is such a specific subculture that I may mention that I'm an artist from Hawaii, because that is something that's very unique, and it's something I'm very proud of. I'm not native Hawaiian, but that is the culture that raised me. But being Filipino, like kind of what Casper was saying, like I also don't want to just like categorize myself into, not because I'm not super proud, but it's just a part of who I am. It's just a product. And if people ask me, I'm so proud to tell them that I'm Filipino. But yeah, I think like if we're doing a resume, I think, and maybe it's because Hawaii is a super subculture, but I am, yeah, I say in that sense, yeah. And then usually that leads into I'm Filipino. My family came over from the Philippines. So I'm very proud of that. So yeah.
Cool. And it's so great you can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have time for it might be one or two questions here. Let's do a quick one. Thea asked, who are some of your AAPI role models or influences that helped guide you through the industry and breaking out of imposter syndrome? So some role models.
I'm gonna go first because in 8th grade, I got to write with this guy. He really has been my mentor and friend. His name is Daniel Ho, which I think he should know about the AAC. You know, he's a 6-time Grammy winner. But to see him continually, and I've seen him fight, you know, against discrimination. It's just been inspiring. He just keeps recreating himself and he just keeps going, you know, but his name is Daniel Ho, and amazing music. But even more than that, I'm just a fighter to keep doing his art. And I don't think he says he's Chinese. Casper, it's like what you said, they can tell he is Chinese. And that's the hard part. He does, you know, local Hawaiian music and he wants to be a pop star. And so I think it's been interesting to watch his journey, but he hasn't let it stop him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Sometimes it's just friends that you come up with. Yeah. Anybody else? Any role models or influences?
So for me, growing up, I started writing when I was about 14, and a band, it's actually a sister duo that really inspired me was Meg and Dia. They're Meg and Dia Frampton. They're half Korean, half Caucasian. And there weren't a lot of people that looked like me, even like slightly in the music that I like to listen to. So for them being identifying as Asian and also being in a genre of pop punk music that was kind of, you know, a rebellion in itself, I was super inspired by them, and I've been following their careers up until now. Probably will continue. I think that it just kind of inspired me to go against the grain and not just what society thought us as Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders should be doing, you know, being in pop punk music, you know, regardless of your ethnic identity, is kind of like a stick it to the man kind of rebellion in itself. So yeah, I definitely highly recommend checking them out.
Yeah. Anybody else?
For me, someone I always sort of looked up to was Ted Chung, and Ted did the keynote at the AAC Creative Summit over the past weekend. And Ted, when we met, he was Snoop's manager. He's Korean American. He's from LA, and just like has built this crazy business. He runs an agency now called Cashmere, and they focus a lot on multicultural marketing. And we've had many conversations over the years about identity and music and just the business and all of that. So shout out to Ted Chung. We love him.
I want to say Grace and the founders and the team of Asian American Collective has opened so many doors for me, and it took turning 30 years old and joining AAC to finally feel comfortable with all that I am. So just want a big thank you. And yeah, Mia in the crowd too. So let's go into just what are you guys up to? How can we follow you?
Amy, can I jump in? I think Jasmine
Michelle.
asked a really important question.
Oh, Jasmine.
You might want to address it in the Q&A.
Oh, okay. I found it. Something about, okay, appropriation. How do you feel about maybe non-AAPI artists using AAPI culture in their music?
I can talk about this because I'm thinking of a few situations that have come up, especially with like TikTok. I feel like there's been a lot of romanticizing different cultures, even if which is great to like respect other cultures. But I think we were talking about earlier how fans kind of feel so close with the artist that they almost feel like they are in the culture, even when they're not. And we see this sort of like with Gwen Stefani saying that she's Japanese. And it's like, you're not Japanese. And several like makeup trends too on TikTok. I think there was like the fox eyes one where people would like pull their eyes, and it's like, that's what people do to make fun of Asian people. So why are we like looking at this and saying like, oh, this is such a fun, cute thing, when like that's how people make fun of each other? Things like that I feel like have popped up. And so it's like, I love that there is more Asian representation now, but I do think we have to be careful with how much we're like romanticizing that
Mm.
in a way, or like almost turning it into like a token of some sort, like turning Asian people into a token instead of celebrating diversity, actually. I don't know if I explained that in the right way, but that's sort of how I see it. I think there's a balance.
Yeah, like Soy says, yeah, how we treat, respect others, and just what you choose, what aspects you're highlighting, or but yeah, Faith, you had something.
Exactly what you said. I think it's about the respect part, because I've been on the other side where Dondi says we grew up in Hawaii, and I did a Hawaiian album and I've done some Hawaiian music, and I've been called out by other Pacific Islanders. I think they were calling, well, I don't need to tell you. Basically, they're just saying an Asian person shouldn't sing Hawaiian. I was like, I'm from Hawaii. I mean, again, at the end of the day, I think it's the authenticity and the respect to that culture. And I'm not pretending to be Hawaiian, but in that respect, I think, I don't think that we should be not allowed to celebrate each other's cultures. It's such a fine line, but it was hard, to be attacked in that way. And I'm like, but I'm from the island and I love this music, and I don't want to keep anyone that loves this music. And it's a deeper conversation, because like Japan loves Hawaiian music. I went on tour there. There's Hawaiian hula halaus, and I don't know, there's some that would really judge them negatively. And to me, maybe I'm just Pollyanna, I'm like, if the music moves you, please, make it your own. I don't know. You guys may have some other opinions, but that's how I feel.
I agree with everything that's been said on all sides. I think there's a respectful way, and there's definitely some weird like fetishes or like cultural appropriations that are just like so distasteful, and it's disrespectful. Like it's just ignorance. But at the same time, I think one of the most beautiful things about art and culture is that it does transcend and translate. And I think it is celebratory, and everyone, like, it's inclusive. So like, I wouldn't want anyone to feel excluded from my culture if they were being respectful and they truly were appreciating it. I'd want to share it with anybody who truly had a love and a respect for it. So yeah, it's a fine line and a deeper conversation, like Faith said, but yeah.
Yeah, but I so agree with you, Dondi. I think that, we should be able to borrow and use, if it's the music that we love, the cultures that we love, being respectful, like you said. I love when people use different kinds of ethnicities and instruments in their music, and even if it's not their ethnicity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. We are at time, and just thank you everybody for your amazing insights and just sharing with everybody, that we are, this diaspora is not a monolithic culture. But yeah, thank you everybody again. We're going to close out now. And please follow our awesome panelists. We're posting our social media handles on the chat. And yeah, thank you everybody again. So
Thank you, Amy and Day and MLC team.
oh, thank you, Grace.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.